Some of the funniest unintentional comedy comes out of people with completely out-of-this-world stupid ideas, who believe in them and present them with such sincerity that you can't help but laugh. One of these people is Computing Forever. Computing Forever comes from the Carl Benjamin Davis Arini the quartering camp of right-wing thinky mans, and despite being now deleted off of YouTube, he's still keeping on making the same content about the same rate and with about the same level of logic. Dave Cullen, his real name, makes several types of content. How Is This a Thing? Posted monthly-ish, weekly-ish, the schedule seems to be completely random, and it's Dave Cullen's personal outlet for all the things he has convinced himself are true. Connecting the Dots, the most boring pieces of media to ever exist, one-offs, which are confusing and weird and bad, and interview-like things. I'll be talking about several of these series and responding to them, in an attempt to delve into the true depths to which this person has sunk. Let's start with How Is This a Thing? This episode starts with the Joe Rogan controversy, where, rightfully so I might add, a bunch of people got mad at him for promoting conspiracy nonsense on his podcast, the most popular in the world, by the way. So, because scientists not wanting platforms to promote misinformation is so offensive to him, he goes over to the Joe Rogan racism controversy, which I won't talk about because frankly, I just don't know much about it. The main gist of what Davey Wavy Chicken Gravy here says is that no one was offended, which is, not true. But that's not even Dave's point either. No, his point is, and I quote, "The establishment are attempting to cancel him because he has used his platform to expose the COVID scam." He spends the second half of the video complaining about the Canadian trucker strike, where a tiny number of truckers got so angry that they had to do something safe for free that takes 5 minutes to do, they decided to shut down traffic in the capital city in order to protect their right to recklessly endanger others. He then goes on another unhinged rant about the social credit score he has convinced himself is coming, which he then compares to having his PayPal shut down. He then makes a cool January 6th excuse where there are provocateurs causing all the violence the truck drivers say they would do, while completely ignoring that they are blocking roads for petty, selfish reasons. What ended up happening was the Canadian authorities ended up dismantling all the blockades that the protesters set up and arrested all the people who were doing illegal stuff. Finally, he accuses the globalists of trying to mess up the supply chains to starve the population out in order to get it to end political demonstrations. Then what comes after is a disjointed, barely comprehensible rant that accuses globalists of trying to exacerbate the shipping crisis in order to get the starving population to accept martial law and more extreme measures, and then take more COVID booster shots before telling his audience to start stockpiling food, which will, no doubt, cause the very supply chain problems he's worried about to start in the first place. But I guess that's really convenient thinking when nobody actually can affect the world and it's all the globalists' fault, huh? At the end of the video, he suggests that from the start, everyone should have just ignored the COVID restrictions. Then there would be a huge number of dead people. But we'd be free. Aside from the people who died. His standalone videos, while still bad, are at least more interesting. Let's look at a few, the first being "They attack unappropriate," which is about Ukraine, and has some interesting takes. This video's main topic is about Ireland's recent push to get people to use their holiday homes to house refugees, which, as someone who thinks people who have lost everything dying in the street is, bad, I fully support. If there's a large number of houses that are empty, and a large number of people who need houses, the people should go in the houses. This is something that everyone with a normal sense of morality should agree with. However, Dave Cullen is anything but normal. Or moral. He mentions that Ukrainians are fleeing to Poland to get access to welfare benefits, like not being forcefully deported or shot to death by Russian soldiers for the horrible crime of riding a bike, asserting that human life is less important than property rights. In order to support his point, he brings up the following example. Joe Blogs is refurbishing a house as a holiday home, but then the big evil government forces him to give his house to the evil war refugees. This is actually a common strategy of his, where he brings up a ridiculous-sounding fallacy in order to make his bad ideas sound legitimate and good compared to the one presented. Here's my response to that. Joe Blogs isn't real, and I think we should protect real people instead of fake people made up by conspiracy theorists. How many of these homes are investment properties or whatever? Not to mention that how even owning one house in this day and age is downright impossible. So even his little Joe Bloggs example of a fixer-upper house is an unattainable goal for most people. Slippery slope fallacy is the name of the game here, and he uses that and nothing else to justify his strange resistance to help people in need. This also connects to his Great Reset conspiracy, which I will go over in a little bit. This next one is called A Message to Those Who Got the Jab, so he is specifically talking to me and no one else. Let's see his questions. Okay, this damn video, oh my god, it is so, how do I even, I'm just gonna play a few clips.
It's been said that this is the first time ever that the ineffectiveness
so while
of
the
the
troubles
drug
of the world
eventually realized their compliance forces now make their bodies idea of it, and when you get down to it, it's essential that
like, how in the world am I supposed to debunk that? No, there isn't an evil globalist cabal, his words not mine, seeking a communist transhuman future. It's so bizarre I'd be wasting my time even trying. So, I could just answer all the questions he poses to all the people with vaccines in the video, but I'm just one data point. Let's see what other people think of these questions. For science. Hello.
Hello.
When you took the vaccine, did you, in fact, think it would permanently make things better forever?
No, I was most under the impression that it would be like, I'd get a shot, I might need a booster later, and like I wouldn't be immune, but it would help a lot.
Like in what sense?
No.
It would permanently fix all COVID forever.
No.
No, it would improve the situation at hand.
Are you personally being sold a subscription service to your body?
No, I am not. I'm pretty sure I got all my limbs for free.
In the same way that you get a flu shot, right? Do you feel enslaved to the flu shot? No, of course you don't.
I'm confused as to what this question means.
Well, no.
Is it true that the fact you took 2 shots and a booster mean that you are cowardly, spineless, and lack any kind of self-respect?
Oh, of course. I think my wish to protect myself and those around me is very cowardly.
The answer is no.
No, I don't believe that of myself.
Not to my knowledge.
Do you have a trauma bond with your vaccine?
What is a trauma bond?
A trauma bomb?
I'm sorry. Do I have an excuse me?
Because the guy equates getting the vaccine to a person in an abusive relationship.
No, that is nowhere close.
I had to do such a double take when I heard that. I was like, what did you just say?
No, not particularly. I got the vaccine and then I moved on.
I don't think it's very traumatic. It's just like a little thing.
Do you feel enslaved by your vaccine?
Yeah. It actually manifests in a giant vaccine like needle with arms and legs every time I go to sleep, and it tells me what to do.
Are you part of the digital population control grid of vaccine passports and control certs?
I don't even know how to begin to approach that question.
You know, I've never actually heard of that. I don't think so. No.
Okay, I think he just used large words so that I didn't understand what he was saying.
So, do I have a vaccination card? Am I fully vaccinated? And do I have a passport? Do I abide by TSA guidelines? Like, yes.
Are you planning on being part of the techno-communist feudal transhuman future?
Once again, never really heard of it before, so can't really give my opinion on that one.
You wouldn't happen to have a definition for that, would you?
Okay, it's you get brain chips and vaccines and the bad.
Yes, absolutely. I will definitely be there in the techno-communist future. Yeah.
If they were recruiting, I'd think about it.
Yeah, no, my answer to the last one is I literally have. It is. That question is beyond difficult to decipher.
That that was fun. Now, one of the main pillars of his worldview that we haven't mentioned yet is the Great Reset, which, despite being in reality the World Economic Forum pretending to care about poor people, watch this video on Thought Slime for more on that, he thinks it's some evil plot by the Marxist UN dementors to destroy the world. Explained in this video, World Government and the New World Order. He begins by arguing that people who don't believe the one world government is a conspiracy theory are simply NPCs who don't see the world for how it truly is, which is very funny considering what happens to those people once you try to put them on even terms.
Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Cedar. What a fucking nightmare.
First off, the World Government Summit is a name given to an organization dedicated to talking about world issues while not actually doing anything to solve them. It's hosted in Dubai, a country that famously has no problems whatsoever, and it has people from a ton of countries, but crucially, not representatives of those countries, because that's called the United Nations. And they don't say what you want them to. So, use this conference that has an important sounding name that sort of says what you want to believe, and go wild with speculation. He spends most of the video looking at their website, where he implies a link between this conference's estimate for the world population and Agenda 21, a UN resolution that predicted 70% of the world will be living in cities by 2050. Do you want to know why they arrived at the same time? It's a little thing called statistics. You know, like math and stuff. He's implying that they're conspiring to make this true when in fact this is just happening and they're just correctly using statistical models. Drawing conclusions about the bad people in reverse like this is merely a sign of things to come. He then goes on to the climate change thing and
That progress on curbing global emissions have reached a standstill. Yeah, youth are lobbying. Are you sure those lobby groups of young people are not in fact astroturfed movements that are presented as being grassroots, but are in fact designed to serve the interests of the globalists? Just thinking out loud there.
Dave, please stop. You're making this so easy for me. Just think about what you said. How in the world will stopping climate change make things easy for the globalists? How the these movements are real. Come on, how? He also implies that net zero emissions is a dog whistle term for wiping out most of the human race. Moving on from that, however, he says that outright systemic racism, nationalism, and right-wing populism are forms of dissent against the evils of political correctness, globo-homo, authoritarianism, and globalism again, misreading global dialogue between religions as a one-world religion, which is not what the thing says. He then goes on to say that whenever a bad thing happens and another thing happens soon after, this must be the globalists shaking up the world for the Great Reset. What is that? Keep watching. He's trying desperately to connect this to conference, the whole Great Reset techno-feudalist dystopia, but he's running into the problem where they just aren't talking about that. He goes off on some tangent completely unrelated to the clip he just showed, save for one sentence at the end. It seems as if he's incapable of responding to anything longer than a sentence, which precludes him from any kind of deeper analysis of the things being said and the concept being explored here. Thinking in terms of a conspiracy board where everyone is good or bad makes you blind to certain things that might require you to think harder. Geopolitics is complicated, and it's very easy to make lots and lots of mistakes. And when you think in terms of lines and pictures on a conspiracy board, you can't really take into account a lot of these intricacies. The conspiracy board of reality doesn't look like this. It looks like this. Applying this sort of backwards thinking to reality means that when he hears new monetary system, he thinks evil digital bubble currency, rather than what they mean, which is nothing. Nothing at all. They don't mean anything. Finally, he goes off on Klaus Schwab. Now, Klaus Schwab is one of the biggest living hypocrites today, and you can and should criticize him for a lot of his beliefs. Specifically, his actual virtue signaling about large CEO salaries being unacceptable while he himself not only gets a massive salary, but is also the chairman of an organization that perpetuates the very system that causes systemic injustice. The problem, as I mentioned previously, is that he doesn't do that. Instead, Klaus Schwab sends some meaningless garbage about constructing a common future, and this prompts Dave to go on a final rant about the one world government that he's made up with his mind and the pandemic, and the unrelated Russian invasion of Ukraine will somehow congeal into the government giving everyone a digital ID, not realizing that he already has several. Now, connecting the dots is an entirely different and very, very strange beast to his other types of video, and it's not really conducive to the format I've done so far. So I came up with a little idea. Welcome everyone to Hatman's Conspiracy Madness Hour, sponsored by the UN, the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, Twitter, PayPal, Bill Gates, CNN, and the government. On this show, we take a look at conspiracy theorists to find out just how crazy they really are. Tonight's guest, Dave Cullen! Dave Cullen is a humble writer from Cork, Dublarec, Ireland, well known for his articles Google On Hub is a unique new take on the Wi-Fi router, and Top 10 Best Free iPad Games Summer 2016. With that kind of portfolio, you know his opinions are worth more than a white elephant. Let's get on with the show. Now, the main tenet of his belief system is a thing called neo-feudal communism. What is it? Don't ask me. Seriously, don't ask me. I don't know. This phrase is a tangle of Anyway, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supports neo-feudal communism, but can't say that directly. So, directed by the globalists, the Gates Foundation funds news sources who write articles about microchips, which enable the Great Reset. How? Why? It's very obvious. Returning to the globalists, them and George Soros control the UN and every government at once. They're very busy, you understand. Support not only microchips, they support vaccine passports as well as COVID precautions along with the aforementioned news sources. These COVID precautions will, somehow, cause the neo-feudal communism. Now, for this next part, let's mosey on down to this corner, with the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. Now, the globalists control these organizations too, and they bribe the government into taking their advice, such as carbon emission reduction, which is just a code word for the Great Reset, and COVID-19 lockdowns. Now, you might think,
hey, if the globalists control the government and also these organizations, why do they need to bribe governments to take their advice when both parties are already controlled by the globalists and they could just implement them anyway? Are they bribing themselves into doing the thing they were already planning on doing?
and the answer is yes, that is very strange. The media tell pure lies about the COVID pandemic in order to break the public and get them used to the hashtag #PodLive, destroying any kind of opposition to the communist future.
Hey again, if this plan is supposedly to destroy private capital and property, then why did Boris Johnson say this immediately after?
Opportunity, more widely and fairly, and create the conditions for a dynamic recovery that is led not by the state, but by free enterprise.
Like, Cullen watched this and edited this entire video, possibly multiple times. How could he possibly miss this?
Oh no. Part of this Great Reset is governments giving free education to people who want jobs in new fields, which encourages—
Wait a second, that makes even less sense! If the goal is to destroy the economy, then why would you possibly—
Now, since this has obviously been planned for years, the climate change agenda, which is either very similar or the same to the COVID agenda, states the horrible nightmare future that streets must be closed and pedestrian areas added to cities. Which sounds pretty baller to me. I'm on board if this is the agenda. Which brings us to the Rockefeller Foundation. They're funding a project in conjunction with the World Economic Forum called the Common Pass, designed to make travel easier at airports by showing if you're vaccinated or not. That's it. But it's actually part of the global homogenized control ID system. Anyway, Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum ordered the Russian invasion of Ukraine, where they're doing like genocide and stuff, in order to cause food shortages, which will something the Great Reset. Now, one aspect of the Great Reset is— content warning by the way, is it's really racist. Having all the white people sterilized by the vaccines and all the old white people dying because of vaccines in order to replace them with the non-whites who are easier to control because they aren't white, I guess. The immigrants will then outpopulate the white people who got the vaccines. Haha, that was fun. Now let's wrap this. This will lead into the ultimate plan. We're using brain force and soybeans. The globalists will coup Ireland and make Brussels the capital of the new pan-European empire of the can you stop? With Jewish, communist, socialist Islam as its main religion, guns will be banned and soy will be mandated as everyone becomes trans, which will ultimately mean the femboy— End program! I'm no longer in control of my own destiny! Dave Cullen is a confused person, seeking meaning from a world where everything is going wrong at once. He sees vaccine mandates and the world in general changing more and more, and viewing this, he retreats into his worldview, dominated by a vast global conspiracy to end humanity, put it in a box. What dominates this worldview here is the idea that the world can be ordered into as simple as chart as this. Nuances melt away as the entire world forms into a place where simple logic dominates, and everyone bigger and older than you is out to get you and take away your freedoms. And now we get to why I spent 4 months of my life on this. Because this used to be me. Why do people believe this stuff? Because they're scared. I was scared when I was watching these videos in 2015, 2016. Channels and personalities like this make you scared, and then make you feel safe simply by watching them with the comforting feeling that there is a single group, a single individual, responsible for all the evil and unjust things you see in the world, working towards some malevolent and unknowable plan for a terrible future. But the truth is always more complicated in reality. Elon Musk has a net worth of $275 billion, while millions of people in his nation live their lives in debt and die on the street. You're not wrong to think that's unjust. You're not wrong to question the power structures such as corporations and governments that you live under, and the power they hold over your life. The world may be bad, but that doesn't make your life worthless. What I find comforting to know is that you can change the world. Not on any kind of individual level, but more on a macro scale. Except that no person, no one supreme perfect person, will or has ever saved the world from disaster. Change can only come from us all, and if we believe the system is unjust, like it very much is, we can build a better one. Free of the division of class, free of dull work and autocratic rule. The future doesn't lie in some fake imagining of the past. It lies with progress. A better world won't just fall into your lap. You, and everyone else, have to work towards it. And, to quote the man himself, all we can do with the time we have from the cradle to the grave is to live each day of our life with as much dignity and joy as can be possible within whatever set of circumstances we find ourselves in. Major world-changing events are moving themselves well beyond our individual control, and their impacts on our lives are and will continue to be significant for some time to come. All any single individual can do in the face of that is to find like-minded people to share the burden with, support each other, and build, to whatever degree possible, a means of navigating and reducing the worst of the negative effects of all this and maximizing any opportunities that rise along the way. We're only passing through this life, so while we are here, we will engage with whatever small acts of defiance we can each day, knowing a better world is possible.